Hello, All-Star Classroom 22. Today we will be continuing on working with one-step multiplication mathematical equations. And you read that correctly. We are going to only be working with multiplication equations today. For this lesson, you will need your sharpened pencil with an eraser, a calculator, and your guided notes sheet. You'll follow along and fill in the spaces as you're prompted in the video. I will be circulating through the classroom in case any of you need any assistance. So let's review. I know we talked about this a little bit last week. An equation. What is an equation? Well, an equation is a statement that the values of two mathematical expressions are equal. They're indicated by the equal sign. That sounds like a lot, but if you look, you can see here that there is in fact an equal sign indicating that that is an equation. So that means that both sides are equal, or both sides have the same value. So what is an inverse operation? I know we talked about something that was synonymous with inverse, and that would be opposite. So an inverse operation is an operation that is opposite of the other. So the inverse operation of multiplication is division, and the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So what is algebra? When we say the word algebra, a lot of people get scared, but it's actually something really fun and, of course, something very useful that will help us and will be exposed to throughout our education. So algebra is a branch of mathematics in which symbols, usually letters of the alphabet, so we're talking about variables, represent numbers or quantities and express general relationships that hold for all members of a specified set. For example, I know we've worked with x quite a bit. So x would equal, and the x would be the variable or the letter of the alphabet that represent a specific quantity. So in that equation, all of the x's would be equal to the number that we solve it for. So did you know that the word algebra is rooted in the Arabic term al-jabar, which means restoration? So restoration of the equality of the equation. So what does it mean to balance an equation? The definition of the word equation means that both sides are equal. Therefore, finding the correct value of the variable, such as x or y, will balance the equation. So here we have a very simple picture indicating actually a balance and how both sides are equal. Even though 3 plus 2, you've got 3 orange weights and 2 blue weights. On the right, you have 5 white weights, excuse me. So both sides are 5. Even though you have 2 different numbers on the left side, they do equal 5. So that helps you understand what it means to balance an equation. So a one-step multiplication equation. So here we have 3x equals 24. So this does look quite familiar. We actually did this the other day and you all did quite well. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into more difficult problems than we were working with before. Okay, so let's work here with 3x equals 24. So there are some terms that we need to review just to make sure. We have the 3, which is called a coefficient because it's before the variable of x. So x is called the variable, and the 3, or the number before x, when it's being multiplied by x, is called the coefficient. So we're going to hear those terms actually throughout all the problems that we're working with, and as we use them more and more, we'll become more familiar with them. So 3x equals 24. So step 1, find the inverse operation. Well, we know that x is being multiplied by 3. Okay, so that is being done to x. 3 is being multiplied by x, and this is actually the multiplication sign, not the variable x. So in order to undo that, or to balance the equation, we have to use the inverse operation of multiplication, which is division. X wants to be by itself. So how are we going to get rid of that? We are going to divide both sides by 3. Now, why did we divide both sides by 3 and not just the left side? because whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. That's a rule in when you're working in algebra, specifically in equations. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So this is just like saying 3x divided by 3. But we're 7th and 8th grade mathematicians, so we don't use that division sign when we're working with algebra like this. So it's 3 divided by 3 here. That gets rid of those. So now you have x by itself. 24 divided by 3. Go ahead and do this on your calculator. Okay, you should have gotten x is equal to 8. If you didn't, raise your hand and I will come and check your answer and see what went wrong. So x equals 8. So we solved it, and we know that we divided by 3. So we multiplied by 3 originally, and to undo that, or the inverse operation, was to divide by 3. And we got the answer of x equals 8. But we're not finished yet. And remember the other day I said you have the opportunity to get 100% on anything that you do in algebra because you can check your answer. And on your test, you will be expected to check your answer. Okay, so how do we check your answer? Well, what you would first do, I'm going to change the color here so you can see. You are going to rewrite the equation exactly like it was originally given to you. So don't rewrite something that you wrote, because what if you made a mistake? Then it's not going to be correct. So I copied 3x equals 24, which is what I was originally given. Then you're going to replace the variable, or the letter x, with what the value that you got for x. Here we got the value of x equals 8. So 3 times 8, and I actually used a little dot here, equals 24. Okay, and go ahead and do that in your calculator or in your head too if you're great at your math facts. 24 equals 24. Excellent. Does 24 equal 24? Of course it does. So we know that our answer of x equals 8 is correct. Let's try another one. Okay, so I just wanted to remind you that the commutative property states that addition and multiplication can be moved or switched without changing the answer. So 3 plus 2 is the same as 2 plus 3. Here you could switch, the x and the 7. Of course, coefficients are always before the variables. But let's say you had, like we were working with before, 3 times 8 is the same as 8 times 3. So that doesn't change the value of your answer. In subtraction, it would. But we'll be working with that more in the future, and we'll have to remember that. Okay, so let's do another problem here. We have 7x equals 21. So that's like saying 7 times x equals 21. Our first step is to find the inverse operation. We know that x is being multiplied by 7. The inverse or opposite operation of multiplication is division. So we need to divide both sides, not just one side, both sides by 7. It's easy as that. So let's divide both sides by 7. You can do this on your calculator if you'd like, or if you're really good at your math facts, you can go ahead and do that in your head. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and we don't put a 1 before the x. So we just are left with x. And 21 divided by 7, go ahead and do that in your head or in your calculator. And you should have the answer of x equals 3. Okay, but we're not finished. We need to check our answer. I'm going to copy down exactly as it was given to me. 7x is equal to 21. I am now going to replace the variable with the value that I got when I solved this equation for that variable. So the value of x we decided was 3. So 7 times 3 is equal to 21. And the reason why I'm not using a times, the actual times symbol here between 7 and 3, is because we're working with variables here. And if I put an actual x as a multiplication sign in between my 7 and my 3, it might confuse me and I might actually think that that's a variable. So that's why I like to use the dot there instead. Okay, so 7 times 3 equals 21. Does 7 times 3 equal 21? 21 equals 21. It does, in fact, equal 21. So we actually did a really good job solving this. I'm going to erase that little line there. We did an outstanding job solving this, and we are ready to go ahead and get started with some practice.